So the billionaires have had a 40-year plan to destroy American government because they don't want to pay taxes. And it looks like it's starting to come unraveled. Check this out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and please subscribe to our channel. Well, it's a beautiful Tuesday here in Portland. I hope today is going well for you, and you have a chance to get out and breathe some fresh air and walk around. I should have brought the mask upstairs. I'll get it tomorrow and I'll show you. Or maybe during one of the breaks. A friend of Sean's is making masks, and Louise and I went for, we've been going for our walks with these little, it's like America is getting fashion conscious about masks. You see pictures of people in Asia where the government just passes them out to everybody, and everybody's wearing the same white mask. Here you've got masks with cats on them and masks with, of all different kinds of colors and all kinds of cool stuff. So anyway, step by step, right? Donald Trump last night had a complete meltdown on TV. If it wasn't, and God bless Paula Reed over at ABC News, at CBS News for holding his feet to the fire. It was pretty remarkable what she did. I mean, she literally was interrupting him to point out the fact that he was lying. And she kept saying, all of February, what'd you do? Nothing. Well, he went golfing several times. He held several rallies. He was on Fox News a bunch of times telling people that there's nothing to worry about and everything's going to be good. So that's, basically what he did in February. Now, the Trump administration has published a timeline of things that the CDC did in February or some functionary in the HHS did in February. Trump. Oh, my God. And, I didn't watch the meltdown because I don't watch the Trump reality TV show anymore. I mean, this is really what it is. Trump is saying, I've got a big decision to make. When to open the country. Well, he never closed the country, right? It's up to the governors to do that. And individual mayors and county officials, they can order shutdowns. There's plenty of state quarantine laws that go back to yellow fever epidemics in the 1800s. That empower them to do those things, tuberculosis, polio. I mean, there's been a bunch of diseases that we've had to deal with and that we have actually enshrined in law. Not so much the disease, but the power of local officials to shut down their areas, their municipalities, or their states. And there was in 1976 a law passed called the National Emergencies Act, which does somewhat increased federal power. This was, following on the backs of, I believe the case was Youngstown Steel. It was the name of the Supreme Court case back in the 1940s, late 40s, or maybe even the early 50s. Frankly, I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly when it was. Probably was 50-51 because it was the Korean War. And Harry Truman was president. And he went in, and Youngstown Steel was in the middle of a strike. Their workers were on strike. And so Harry Truman, the president of the United States, went in and seized the steel company and said to the workers, you guys are now working for me, and you will go back to work, which they did. But then it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, sorry, Harry, you can't do that. You don't have that kind of authority. Now, as I said, I believe it was 79, that authority was somewhat updated. 76, actually. It was the National Emergencies Act of 1976. That power was updated, but still, it's not total. Trump does not have total power over anything. Well, he's got total power, I suppose, over the West Wing right now. And in fact, I mean, well, let me just recap, and then I want to get to Trump's tweet this morning and what's going on with this. And by the way, for our program today in our first hour, basically my question, and I'll ask it right now, and then I'll give you the setup for it, is this 40-year, and it's 40 years to the year right now. It started in 1980 with the election of Ronald Reagan. 40 years later is right now, more or less. I mean, we're just 6 months short of it, I think. And maybe 7, 8 months, whatever it is. Is the 40-year Republican plan to destroy American government and give all power in this country to the oligarchs, to the billionaires, is that plan disintegrating right in front of our eyes? That's our question for the first hour. Our second hour, how much damage can Donald Trump do to blue state governors? He is up to something. And I'm going to lay all this out in our second hour. And it looks to me like he's basically, he's got the federal government seizing ventilators and masks and PPE, personal protective equipment, PPE, going to states and to hospitals, literally seizing them and taking them to pass along to red state governors. This is getting weird. So that's our second hour. In our third hour, Dr. Bandy Lee is going to be with us. She is the psychiatrist from Yale who wrote a fascinating book about Donald Trump and company. It was called The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump. 27 psychiatrists and mental health experts assess the president. So she'll be with us in our third hour. So back to my riff here. About the 40-year Republican plan disintegrating. People are wondering why Donald Trump melted down at his press conference yesterday. And there's, in my opinion, really a simple explanation. The plan is falling apart. It's just that simple. It's literally falling apart. Back in 1980, when David Koch ran for president on the Libertarian ticket, this was kind of the beginning of the whole thing. Back in 1980, when David Koch ran on that ticket, and I'm going to read to you parts of his platform. This was David Koch's platform in 1980 when he ran for vice president of the United States on the Libertarian ticket. Got 1 million votes, by the way. We urge the repeal of all federal campaign finance laws. We favor the abolition of Medicare and Medicaid. We favor the repeal of the fraudulent, bankrupt, and increasingly oppressive Social Security system. We propose the abolition of the governmental postal service. We oppose all personal and corporate income tax. We support the eventual repeal of all taxation. All criminal and civil sanctions against tax evasion should be terminated immediately. We support repeal of minimum wage laws. We advocate the complete separation of education and state. Government ownership, operation, regulation, and subsidy of schools and colleges should be ended. We condemn compulsory education and call for the immediate repeal. We support the abolition of the Environmental Protection Agency. We support abolition of the Department of Energy and the Department of Transportation. We demand a return of America's rail system to private ownership. We advocate the abolition of the Federal Aviation Administration and the Food and Drug Administration. It just goes on and on, right? This is David Koch's agenda, and it has become the Republican agenda. It was put into place when Ronald Reagan became president in 1980. In the election of 1980, he was sworn in January of '81, and their strategy that when Reagan won, Reagan inherited that strategy. And the strategy was convince people that the American government, this government that, George Washington had 3 horses shot out from under him trying to form, that American government is actually evil and incompetent and useless. And because the Supreme Court in 1976 and 78, the Buckley and Bellotti cases said, no problem, billionaires can fund politicians, Reagan, in his 1981 inaugural address, they helped him get into office. He says, government was not the solution to our problems. Government is the cause of the problems. And that 40-year plan was supposed to hit its peak with the election of Donald Trump. He was going to take down the final pieces, Obamacare and privatize Social Security and shut down the post office. He was supposed to do all that stuff. And now with the coronavirus, Americans are realizing, government can do things, and we want government to do things, like save our lives, please.